Hey guys, welcome to the review video for our third Tanakh test of the year. This test review is going to follow a little bit of a different format than the other ones because we're a little bit shorter on time and maybe to make it a little bit easier for everybody to study. Instead of going through the psukim and then and pointing out everything in the psukim, we're going to go through the review questions that were on the review sheet with the answers, and we're going to show how those answers can be found in the psukim. Okay, so each one of these slides, what we'll do is we'll look at the question on top. The answer is in red, and then we'll show where the answer can be found in the psukim afterwards. Just to realize, do not just study the questions and answers on this test. If that was true, then I wouldn't even bother going over the psukim. I would just say, guys, just memorize these answers. We are not just memorizing answers. I'm not going to ask the exact same question. You have to, sometimes on the test, you might have to know where in the psukim this comes. I might ask, I might point out to something in the psukim and say, what's interesting about this? Then you'll have to tell me and tell me what we learned from there. I might ask you, I might say, here's what we learned, showing the proof in the psukim. Or I might just ask a question that's similar to one that's on the review sheet. You have to know the information, not just memorize, okay? Good. Let's get started. Okay. First question. What are the three proofs that Bnei Yisrael were looking for an excuse to complain? As we pointed out, we felt, and this was really, I shouldn't say we felt, this is really Rashi's theory that we proved in a couple of places, which will show that Bnei Yisrael were not actually complaining because they actually felt the need to complain. They were upset about something. Rather, they were looking for things to complain about because they were looking for excuses. They wanted to be able to kind of try to get out of this whole Judaism thing that they just all agreed to. It was kind of like, wait a second, what did we just agree to? And once they realized, they said we got to get out of this. We'll discuss a little bit why that was. So the three proofs were: one, it says that Bnei Yisrael were like complainers. This means they weren't actually suffering, but instead they were acting to have an excuse, right? Like complainers, like sufferers, mean they weren't actually suffering. They weren't actually complaining about something legitimate. They were like. It was ki'ilu, as if they were complaining. If it was trying to tell us that Bnei Yisrael were complaining, it could just said Bnei Yisrael were complaining. Where do we see it in that pasuk? Vayahia'am ke mitonim. That kaf means like. They were like complainers, or were like those who were suffering or were complaining because of some sort of suffering. The pasuk going out of its way to say they were like is teaching us they didn't actually have a real complaint. It was they were acting as if they did. Secondly, they complained that they didn't have any meat, but they clearly did. Bnei Yisrael say the following: Vayeshu vayibchu gam Bnei Yisrael vayamru mi achilenu basar. Who will feed us meat? What do you mean, who will feed us meat? They had a ton of sheep and cattle with them. Why did they had meat? The point is, it wasn't about the meat itself. If they were really just complaining about something real, they wouldn't have complained. Rather, they were doing whatever they could to try to find a complaint. Mi achilenu basar. They wanted to be fed the meat. It wasn't enough they had it on their own. Third, they said they missed the free food in Egypt. What did it say? We remember the fish that we ate in Mitzrayim. What does chinam mean? For free. We remember the fish that we ate in Egypt for free. What do you mean for free? They were slaves. What kind of ridiculous complaint is that? So you want to go back and be slaves just so you don't have to pay for your food? You're paying for your food with your labor. So that complaint doesn't really seem to make sense at all, right? It wasn't really free because they were slaves. Clearly, they were just trying to make trouble. Okay, none of these last two excuses don't make sense unless you realize that they didn't really mean it. They were just looking for something to complain about because they wanted an excuse. They were just ki mitonim. So again, just to give you an example on a test. So I might ask you, what's interesting about this word ki mitonim? And you'll say ki mitonim means they were like complainers. And I might ask, what does that teach you? It teaches you they didn't really have actual complaints. They were just looking for an excuse. So that's really what you might have to know on a test. Similar to this one, I might ask you, what's wrong with the complaint? Mi yachilenu basar. You'll say, well, they had meat. They had sheep and cattle. And I might ask you, then what does that teach us? And you'll have to say that teaches us that they were looking for something to complain about. I also might ask, where do we see from the pasuk where do we see from this phrase? We remember the fish that we ate in Egypt for free, that Bnei Yisrael was looking for a complaint. You'll say from the fact that it says free and it wasn't really free because they had to work, that teaches us they were looking for an excuse. Those are all possible questions I might ask. Each time we go through one of these questions, I'm not going to say the other possible questions I could ask. I just want you guys to be aware of the types of questions you should be thinking about each time. Remember, know the information. Know what's the interesting thing in the pasuk? What's the darsheni point in the pasuk that sticks out here? The kaf kimitonim. The fact they're saying where we can get meat from. The fact they're saying that the fish was free. That's the darsheni point. What does that teach us? Okay? That they weren't really suffering. And what's the lesson? What do we learn from that in terms of the theme? That they were looking for an excuse. Okay, that's the kind of pattern you want to be looking for in each one of these questions. Let's move on. Okay, next question. What was it about religion that bothered Bnei Israel? We just said they were looking for an excuse to get out of religion, right? They were looking for a complaint, just something to complain about. What was it about religion that was so difficult? So we said that it takes away some of your free choice and gives you certain responsibilities instead. Okay, this is not directly in the Pesukim, this is how we understood it, but again, that's the idea. Right? Religion, in some way, although it's a beautiful thing to be involved in Judaism, there is some sort of free choice that's taken away. There are certain things that you have to do and certain things you're no longer allowed to do. There are certain responsibilities you didn't have before. You have to worry about your conduct on a daily basis, the things that you eat and the way that you speak and the people you interact with and the things that you do on Shabbat, for example. So that was what Bnei Yisrael had found difficulty with, and that's when once things settled down, they realized, whoa, what do we get ourselves into? So how do we see this in the Torah? How do we see this in the Pesukim? The first time, instead of saying we missed the food from Egypt, it lists a variety of foods. So look what it says, right? Now we missed the fish that we ate in Egypt for free, the cucumbers, the melon, the leek, the onions, and the garlic. Why can't it just say we missed the food? Why does it have to say that? Because it's teaching us, this seems to be unnecessary, unless it is teaching us that it wasn't the actual food they missed, right? If it was just food, it would have said the food. But the feeling of choice that the feeling of choice and freedom from religious responsibility. Look at all the variety here, right? It's cucumbers or melons or leek or onions or garlic. It's choice, and that is symbolic of the choice that they miss that they feel like they're lacking when they from religion. So again, what's the proof that they felt like they lacked choice? When it talks about what they missed in Egypt, it says they missed a different variety of foods. They missed variety. They missed being able to choose. Secondly, the Torah goes out of its way to describe the man in detail. The description makes the man seem boring and routine. They miss the excitement of choice. Again, right, what did it say? It says the man was like coriander seed. It's like this white, boring color. The appearance of crystal actually in this case doesn't mean beautiful. It just means it was kind of clear. There was no real color to it, right? They ground it in a mill or crushed it in a mortar, meaning they made powder out of it, and they cooked it in a pot or made it into cakes. That was the only way they could cook it. It was a powder, it was flour, and they either boiled it or baked it into a cake. It tasted like an oil cake. It had the same exact taste. And we'll see the next part how that works too. So again, we get this picture of it's white, it's like clear. There's only one way to cook it. You make it into a powder, you make it into a cake. It had the same flavor every single time. This idea of this like routine, boring, same flavor of man over and over again is the opposite of the variety they had in Egypt. Again, why emphasize all these details about the man? Because it's teaching us this is what Bnei Israel was missing. They were missing this sense of variety and choice. Okay, next question. This is really a continuation of the last one. We are told that the man would come every morning with the dew. How do we interpret this fact to fit with the theme about the man? Okay, we're trying to say that the man was boring, and the Bnei Israel. This is a symbolic of the fact that Bnei Israel were kind of bored by like the lack of choice and variety and excitement of being able to do whatever you want, so to speak, in religion. So what does it say? It says when the dew descended on the camp. At night, the man would descend upon it. Why are you telling us that? How the man got there? Who cares? So the answer is because this is exactly, it's describing man like the dew, just like rain, just like the kind of things that happens on a daily basis. It is being described simply as being part of nature, right? Something that happens routinely, right? The sun shines every morning. We take it for granted. We don't get excited about the sun shining every day. We don't believe that's the kind of thing that really gets it. We don't realize the miracle of the sun shining every day and how the sun keeps us alive. The miracle of the human body that we actually wake up every day and we can take carbon dioxide in and generate oxygen. We can live off that. The same way we get used to or bored of the routine of nature without truly appreciating its miracles, so too Bnei Israel got used to the miracle of the man and became bored by it. So again, the man coming with the dew at night, every single night, the same exact way, is again showing us this idea that Bnei Israel was kind of like, man was very routine for them, was bored. They no longer appreciated it, again, because this was the idea that they were feeling. They were feeling bored. They were feeling as if like the religion gave them this idea of routine and like the same exact thing over and over again. And this is what they were kind of nervous about when it came to religion. They were trying to get out of. Similar theme as what we mentioned before. Okay. Explain the statement. Bnei Yisrael wanted the best part of the pizza without the pizza. If you guys remember in class, we watched that old Palio string cheese commercial. Those kids come into the store. They say they don't want any part of the pizza. They do no sauce and no crust. And they give them string cheese, and they say, oh, it's the best part of the pizza without the pizza, right? So what does that mean? This is just a mashal, which is a metaphor for something, right? They wanted the best part of religion without religion. What do we mean by that? Right, Bnei Israel was complaining that Hashem should give them meat, but they didn't want the responsibility of Judaism. So basically, they wanted the best part of Judaism, God taking care of them, by the best part of religion. There you have a God, you have religion, you can feel like someone's watching over you, without the most important part, which is living a life of personal responsibility. The main part of religion is saying, listen, I'm going to give up some of my free choice to live a life that's more meaningful because I want to, so to speak, do the right thing. So that's what Bnei Israel didn't want, but what they wanted was, they still wanted a God to watch over them. Look at the pasuk, right? And they returned. Bnei Israel also cried, and what do they say? Who will feed us meat? Of course, they had meat. They had sheep. They had cattle. They could slaughter the cows, sheep if they want. No, miyachilanu. Who's going to feed us meat? They wanted God to do it for them. So again, they wanted the best part of the pizza. They wanted the best part of religion, which is God taking care of them without the pizza, without actually having to take responsibility and do it on their own. We also pointed out this might be part of the slave mentality. Slaves work very hard, but at the end of the day, they don't have to worry about choosing and deciding on a regular basis. They're not used to making their own decisions, being responsible for their own decisions. They want everything to be taken care of, being taken care of for them, the decisions being made for them, and that's the way it is for a slave. So that's what part of the problem of what Bnei Israel wanted to do. They wanted religion, so to speak. They wanted God in their lives. They just didn't want the restrictions of the responsibilities of having to make the proper choices in religion, not always being able to do what they want. Okay, question 5. What was Moshe's view on the overlap between leadership and parenting? Overlap means the things that they have in common. Bring proof. Right, so we pointed the way we learned the psukim, and that Moshe Rabbeinu felt that there is really not a lot of overlap between leadership and parenting. Excuse me, I'm just getting yawn because I'm very tired. A lot of shoveling today. Sorry about that. So again, what we're talking about? Oh, yes. So the overlap between leadership and parenting. So Moshe Rabbeinu felt that yes, that there are certain things that a leader does, and there are certain things that a parent do, and a leader doesn't necessarily have things in common with a parent. What would a parent have to do? A parent has to take care of a child's needs. A parent has to really worry and be concerned about a child, that the child is happy. A parent has to listen to the child, make sure, understand their problems. Moshe felt the job of a leader is that the job of a leader is simply to get his people to their goal. In this case, Eretz Israel. He did not believe the leader should care for his people like a parent does. There's not overlap by taking care of their physical needs, right? Feeding them meat and listening to their problems, listening to their complaints. We see this from Moshe's reaction to the complaint. Instead of trying to understand what was bothering Bnei Israel and trying to get meat from them, he says to Hashem, I don't have to do this. I didn't give birth to these people. If you remember, if we look in the psukim, I wanted to paste the psukim here. Sorry about that. Okay, if you look at the psukim, so after Bnei Israel, sorry about that, once again, after Bnei Israel complained, Moshe hears them complaining, blah, 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 blah. Moshe says to Hashem, why have you done this to me? Look at this. Did I conceive this nation? Did I give birth to it? Now you're saying me carry it against your chest like a nursing mother would carry a nursing baby to the land that I swore to give to their forefathers. I am not their parent. I did not give birth to them. You're just making me act like their mother. This is Moshe Rabbeinu's way of saying, I don't believe I have to be like a parent. I have to be a leader. And I believe God, in this case, disagrees with Moshe Rabbeinu. This is something Moshe Rabbeinu has to learn over time, that a leader can't just say, okay, you follow me and do what I do, but a leader also has to care for the people that he's leading in order to get them motivated and wanting to follow him or her. In this case, it's him. You get the point. And we see the same idea come up when Moshe Rabbeinu calls God At. At is the female way of saying you, and we never ever see in Tanakh God referred to by male pronouns. Female. It's always male. So if God is always referred to using male pronouns, why is Moshe referring to Hashem as At, female? It's as if he's calling Hashem the mother of the Jewish people. It is Hashem's job to take care of the people, not Moshe. Again, even though nowadays we have more egalitarian view of child care, back then it was clear that the mother was considered to be the one who took care of the children. So it would make sense that Moshe Rabbeinu would call Hashem At you if he's trying to say, Hashem, you are the one who's responsible to take care of these kids, not me. Right? Here we see it right here. He says, Im kacha at oseli, if this is what you, At, female, are going to do to me, then I'd rather die. So we see there Moshe calling Hashem At, he's saying, you're the one who's the parent, you're the mother, I'm not the mother. That's not the job of a leader. And again, I believe Hashem disagreed with Moshe on that. And if Hashem disagrees, that kind of makes Moshe wrong. Okay, question 7. We're on to the next set of psukim here, psukim Tet Zayin, until the end of what we need for the test, which is Pasuk Chaf Aleph. And there's another yawn, and I'm clearly still tired. Excuse me. Anyways, so what is the symbolism of the ceremony used to inaugurate the 70 Zakanim as leaders? So if you remember correctly, in reaction to Moshe's complaint, Hashem says, you know what, I'll get some people to help you. So he says, gather to me 70 men from the elders of Bnei Israel, who you know are its elders of the nation, its officers, right? Vilakachta, and you should take them, otam, them, el ohel moed, to the Mishkan, v'yatzvu shami mach, they should stand there with you. What's going to happen? And I will come down via raditi, v'dibarti mach sham, and I will speak with you there, v'atzalti min ruach asher lecha v'samti aleihem, and I will transfer from the spirit that is on you and place it on them while I'm speaking to you. So and then they're going to help you out, right? They'll carry the burden of the nation with you. So the idea of this ceremony was that it wasn't just like God said, okay, let's appoint these people. They are the Zakanim. No, Moshe had to come out. God had to start talking to Moshe. And then when God was in the middle of talking to Moshe, he would use that spirit that was going on at that time to transfer on to these Zakanim. So why have such a ceremony? What's the symbolism? Right. There's something symbolic here. These acts are trying to symbolize an idea. What's the idea here? They were brought to stand with Moshe and get their spirit from him. This symbolizes that, only one that is needed there, that their authority only comes from Moshe, and that they are all supposed to work together. They all, meaning Moshe and the Zakanim. Again, the idea here being that, let's get rid of that while we're at it. Yeah, goodbye that. Unnecessary that. Okay, where were we? Yes. So the idea being that that there was supposed to be a partnership between Moshe and the Zakanim, and not only that, the Zakanim still had to recognize Moshe as the number one authority. So if God would have just made them Zakanim, it's okay. You guys, the Zakanim are now leaders too. Without Moshe being there, without this act, this ceremony, they might have thought, okay, now we are instead of Moshe now, or there's Moshe and then there's us. We have a separate responsibility, separate goals. But no, Hashem and Moshe stand out there, and they actually got their spirit from Moshe as a way of saying, you and Moshe and the Zakanim all have to work together, and that Moshe is still the main authority. Now, these set of psukim discuss the reaction of Hashem to Moshe's complaint, right? Moshe has two complaints, if you remember correctly. Complaint number one is about, I'll do it in blue. Okay, complaint, let's do it a little bit lighter here with terms of the width, okay? So complaint number one, we said, we just called it in class by two words, too hard. Okay? The bottom line is he had a very difficult responsibility. Okay? Moshe Rabbeinu was just saying there's a lot of people and this job is too much for me. Too hard or too much. The second complaint Moshe Rabbeinu had is not, I'm going to call it not mommy. Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, it's not my responsibility to deal with these people's complaints. It's not my responsibility to give them food. So there was this is too hard, right? I believe in being the leader, but this is too much for me. And then there's the fact that it was just, there are certain responsibilities here that aren't mine. So when Hashem responds and gives in a little bit to Moshe, which one of these complaints is he giving into? Which one of these complaints is Hashem saying, you know what? I get it, Moshe. I agree that you have a fair complaint, and I'm gonna give you something because of that. Well, the answer is the first one, the too hard one. How do we see that? What's the Milah Mancha in Pasuk Zayin? Milah Mancha, remember, is a phrase or a word or a shorish that repeats itself unnecessarily, or it seems like unnecessary. If you look at the end of Pasuk Zayin, it says, right, that after I will place the spirit on the Zakanim. All it can very simply say is, and they will lead with you. But look how it says it. V'nas'u itcha, they will carry with you masa'am, the burden of the nation. That would have been enough too. V'lo tisa atal dechen, you won't carry it yourself. Very wordy here and unnecessary, except for the fact that it repeats the shoresh nasa. Again, remember we pointed out sometimes letters from the shoresh can get dropped. The burden, the carrying of the Jewish people, that shorish is repeated. Carrying, burden, carrying. Why is that? Because Hashem was only responding to this first complaint. The fact that it was too hard, it was too much to carry, it was too difficult. That complaint Hashem is responding to and saying, I get that. Okay? Hashem was only responding to Moshe's complaint that it was too much work and that he needed help. Therefore, Hashem gave him this help in carrying the people. But Hashem did not approve of Moshe's complaint that his job is not to be a parent. This complaint, we don't see a response to. We don't see, the psukim referring, to Hashem referring to Moshe saying, and you won't have to be the mother anymore. or right, or I'll find someone else to be the mother, etc., etc. We don't see that because Hashem does not agree with this complaint. Hashem is only responding to this complaint because in this complaint Hashem agrees. Yes, Moshe, it's too hard, but Hashem does not agree with Moshe's complaint that he's not the mother. He believes Moshe still has to act as a parent and care about the people's general needs and happiness. Okay, next. Now, during this process of giving the spirit from Moshe to the Zakanim, a very interesting word is used in the Torah. It says the following. It's somewhere. Here it is. V'yarati v'dibarti machsham. I will come down, Hashem says, and I will speak to you there. V'atzalti min haruach asher alacha. V'samti alihem. I will atzal. The shorish there is aleph, tzadi lamed. I will atzal. Okay, you see it there. Aleph, tzadi lamed. I will atzal the ruach, whatever that means, from on you, and I will give it to these zakanim. Aleph, tzadi, lamed. Really bad at underlining with this. I apologize, but there it is. And then I'll place it on them. So what does it mean? What is Hashem doing with this spirit that's on Moshe before giving it to them? So as he pointed out, there's two possible definitions. Increase. I will increase the spirit that's on you and then give some of that to them. Or I will hold back. I will hold back some of your spirit, Moshe, and I will give it to them instead. Now, depending on how you define this, right? Hashem says, I will increase the spirit that's on you. So if it means increase the spirit that's on you, Moshe's spirit is increased to give to the Zakanim. If so, Moshe doesn't lose any. Right? Hashem is basically going to say, Moshe, I'm going to take the spirit that's on you. I'm going to make more of it. I'm going to give that extra to the Zakanim. But you're still going to have the same amount as you had before. But if it means hold back, then Moshe is having some of his spirit taken away to give the Zakanim. Moshe, I'm going to take some of the spirit, right? I'm going to speak to you there, and I'm going to hold back from the spirit that's on you and give it to them. Well, hold back means Moshe is going to be losing some. I'm going to giving away some of yours. So depending on how you define the word vayatzel, that's going to change the story. So why is that important? So let's move on to the next question. If you want, here's a little bit of a chart that just maps it out for you. Again, if atzel means to hold back from you, that means Moshe is losing some of his spirit. If atzel means I'm going to extend from you, I'm going to make more, and then that means more is added, and Moshe's spirit is not actually losing anything, because more is actually being added to Moshe, so that he can transfer it over to the Zakanim. If you want to pause and look at this chart just to make it clear, that might not be a bad idea. Okay, let's move on. Now, why is this important? Why does it matter if Moshe Rabbeinu is losing some of his spirit to the Zakanim or not? So as he pointed out, this might also be symbolic about what the relationship between Moshe and the Zakanim are going to be. If Moshe and the Zakanim, if you say that Moshe wasn't losing any of his spirit, that's basically the way of saying that Moshe's authority is going to be completely the same as it was before, and the Zakanim are just going to be help Moshe Rabbeinu. However, if it means that Moshe Rabbeinu lost a little bit of his spirit and some of it was given away from Moshe to the Zakanim, that's a way of showing that Moshe Rabbeinu's authority is a little bit less. So if Moshe Rabbeinu is losing some, we can almost say that he has less authority. But if it's more is added and therefore Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't lose anything, then we would say that Moshe Rabbeinu has the same authority. Now the real question is, which one is it? Did Moshe Rabbeinu lose some, or was more added? Why would the Torah use a word that's so confusing? And the answer is, it teaches that both are possible. Both are possibilities. Why? If Moshe Rabbeinu, if they don't work together, if the Zakanim and Moshe Rabbeinu, this is the worst writing of don't work together ever in a video, I apologize, but either way. So if the Zakanim and Moshe Rabbeinu don't work together well, then Moshe Rabbeinu is going to end up with less authority, because there's going to be a group of people who are leading Bnei Yisrael, but they're not connecting with Moshe Rabbeinu. They're not carrying through what Moshe Rabbeinu wants. But if Moshe Rabbeinu and the Zakanim work well together, they do work well together. Again, I apologize for the sloppiness. If they do work well together, then the Zakanim view themselves as part of Moshe Rabbeinu's team, then really the Moshe Rabbeinu will have the same authority. So why use a word that could either mean Moshe Rabbeinu was losing some spirit or that he was not losing some spirit? Maybe the Torah is trying to teach us that both are possible. It's possible in the situation that Moshe Rabbeinu will lose some spirit and some of his authority because he's not working with them, or there's a possibility that Moshe Rabbeinu could keep that same spirit, meaning keep that same authority if he works well with the Zakanim and they're carrying out his plan. Okay, finally, we're going to look at one more question here. We'll have a separate video after this to go through the Midrashim, I think. So I want to get this video out there so you guys, if anyone still wants to study at 9:15 at night, which you might want to, at least I can get it out there to you guys sometime tonight, and also that way I can go to sleep soon. So I'll make the Midrash video for you guys tomorrow to study from, and we'll be reviewing in class tomorrow. That's Wednesday as well. Okay, so how did we find out these two possible definitions? How did we know that atzel could either mean take away, or atzel could mean increase some of the spirit? So we said we looked at other places in Chumash where the shorish atzel appears. Where was that? Let me bring it in here. Now, I'm not going to ask you guys to know this by heart where, just to point it out in the review video, when it comes to Esav, when Esav finds out that Yaakov stole his bracha, so he says to his father, Halo atzalti li bracha, did you not save a bracha for me? In this way, the word atzel, save, means to hold back some, right? There was all this bracha, did you not save a little bit for me? Meaning, not give Yaakov everything, hold a little back from Yaakov that he doesn't have everything. That's one possible definition of atzel. Another situation, we have the word atzilei b'nei Yisrael. Right, we're talking about when God gave the Torah, the Jews were not allowed on Har Sinai. If they touched Har Sinai, they would die. But the great ones, if they went on the mountain, not all the way up, Hashem didn't touch them. The al-atzilei, the great ones. What does great mean? Atzil in this case means great. Great means to have more of something. Someone who's greater is more, is better than somebody else. So in this case, atzil, the shorish atzilei, is something about more, adding. So based on this definition of atzel, which means more, so it could be that the more was added to the spirit of Moshe Rabbeinu. According to this definition of atzel, do you not hold back a bracha on me, save a bracha for me? Atzel would mean to hold back a little bit. So when we looked at two other places in Tanakh, we said it's very important. In order to understand Tanakh, you can look at other places in Chumash, other places in Tanakh to help you understand what you're learning. So this was a place where we did that. We didn't know what the word atzel means. We found two other places in Tanakh where the shorish atzel is used in Chumash. One case it means is a language that means to hold back. Another case it meant increase more. And we pointed out that therefore might change the way we understand in our pasuk what was happening to the spirit of Moshe Rabbeinu. So again, that's going to conclude going through these psukim. Again, watch this video. Remember, don't know the information. Where you're recalling the information. Don't just memorize the answers to the questions. If you just memorize the answers to the questions, you're going to be in trouble. We'll have another video to go over the Midrashim. I'll put that out sometime tomorrow. And we'll review in class tomorrow. Good luck studying, everybody.